Good morning, everybody. Good morning. That's better. If you have a question, just raise your hand, stand up, and get that catch box tossed your way. You will not interrupt me. I'm happy to answer questions as we go. You can look at this slide and have no idea what this talk is going to be about, which is kind of the idea. I could unpack the entire presentation on this slide just using these words. So if you look at the word brand, I think we're going to start there. My background is in branding. Actually, since I signed up for this talk, I was promoted. I am managing director of brand strategy at Arizona State University. So brand is 100% my focus. And I work with all the people across the ASU enterprise, which is sprawling for those of you from out of town, who are working on conversion, who are working on flows, who are working on transactional communications, who are working on the real deep parts of digital marketing. So we're always at that tension, which I'm going to explore, because a brand and this idea of the balance of engagement and experience is about managing a relationship. When I talk about a brand, I'm going to define this for you now. I'm talking about a promise that you make to your best customers that you can keep. So it's not just a promise like, click here, it's going to be amazing. What's the thing that your brand can actually promise and keep? And every time you break that promise, you lose some credibility. The relationship breaks down. I don't see the catch box traveling, so nobody has a question yet. That's good. So I'm Adam Pierno. If you tweet at me at that handle, I will answer you. Not in the next 40 minutes, but eventually today I will, and I'm happy to do that. I've written 2 books. The first one is called Underthink It. It is about overall marketing strategy. It's kind of a primer for new people in account planning and brand planning who aren't trained at agencies, because we throw young people to the fire. And then the second book is called Specific, which has a lot of the content that I'll talk about now. I'm also a faculty associate at ASU, where I'm just now finishing my first course that I'm writing on brand strategy based on data. When we talk about digital marketing, when we talk about digital content, when we talk about anything that's pixels, we tend to think about it like it's a machine. You know, a lot of the language becomes very machine oriented. A lot of the jargon that we use is mechanical. But at the other end of it, there's always, what do we call them? The people who are going to visit the site or the app or the experience or make the transaction. It starts with a U. What do we call them? Users. So we dehumanize the people that are core to this whole thing. And I said we want a brand to be a relationship. It's a promise. You're going to hear me say that a few times, and I apologize in advance that you're going to get bored of me singing that chorus. But everything that we do when we look at it from a mechanical point of view is we try to service the machine. We try to look at it. You can use even this terrible stock image that I found, oil poured in the gears. And we try to figure out what are the ways that we can remove friction and make the machine work better. All the while, there's people on the other side of the glass or on the other side of the keyboard that we have to honor and service. And sometimes we lose the brand promise that we're trying to make when we do that. And if I don't set that timer, I will have you guys all here through lunch. So I apologize for that. Back in the year 2000, has anybody read this book? Hands, please. How many people? That's it? Oh, this is like a seminal book. You should read this book. Steve Krug wrote this book. It's called Don't Make Me Think. When I transitioned from broadcast and traditional advertising and branding into digital marketing, this was handed to me by someone very smart. And they said, this will kind of get you up to speed. This is the book that introduced us to the idea of simplifying. These are kinds of things are common practice, but when this book was written, it was not, to reduce the number of clicks, to reduce the number of buttons. I still remember the stats in there that every time that there's a page where you make someone click, you lose 33% of your audience or something was the going number at the time. I don't know if that's still true, but that's what we said then. And this ushered in an entire wave of approach to digital marketing that we still do today, where we're always trying to skinny down, we're trying to simplify the funnel, we're trying to make people make leaps more quickly and more seamlessly. You all remember this site. This is what Google looked like when it launched. It's actually really not that complicated. There's a few buttons, but it looks so much simpler now. This is a result of Don't Make Me Think. Now, I mean, the logo is much improved. They've got rid of that drop shadow that we all love. But this is the logic of Don't Make Me Think. And we see this approach, if you can think of any site from the early 2000s into the Web 2.0 standard, it's that book and the logic of that book, Don't Make Me Think, that led us to this. It's not just because of Krug's book. It's common sense. We want to throw less distractions. We want to make it easier for people. We want to make them find the thing we want them to find. I can remember being in 100 landing page reviews with a marker, looking at printouts, if you can remember this, printouts of a landing page, that sounds smart, and crossing out pieces of the landing page because they were going to be a distraction to the person. No, they saw this banner ad, and I want them to only see this buy now button, or this book now button, or whatever it is, the conversion point that I need them to do, the form. Google figured that out, and they transformed their entire business around it. They reduced it from this, 4 or 5 inputs, and the Stanford and Linux buttons, which they got rid of quickly, to this simple version. And how do you like that animation? I did that myself, you guys. I didn't even have an assistant. Thank you. I appreciate that. Any questions on how I did that? I'll be here after to walk you through the technical. So there are brands that really, really nail this, that really understand it. You can probably recognize them both without the logos, which I did not include, but Amazon has made millions of businesses and trillions of dollars on simplifying every flow in existence, even though their site looks like hell. They're geniuses about getting you to very simply convert, and simply convert on the things I want. They're not tricking me. They're not dark patterns. They have figured out, oh, we just need them to click there. We just need them to click there. We need them to search here. We need them to pull this down, and then they're gonna buy. They're gonna convert, and I like it. I like the convenience. Uber took the process. Again, I'm going to date myself here. I used to call taxis on the telephone and ask them to come get me, and then I would pace around nervously near a payphone, which I had to stay near so that I could get back on the phone with the dispatcher. That was an unholy nightmare. Uber collapsed that entire thing into 2 buttons and built this huge, not just a business, but an entire vertical around this idea of simply 2-button clicks summoning the thing you need to you. They did that by getting rid of friction in the experience. Larry Tesler created this law of conservation of complexity. He did this while he was at Xerox PARC and Apple and other places. It's been added to, but essentially what he says is that any sort of digital experience or any sort of complex system, in fact, he was an engineer, but it applies to any sort of complex system, is contained. And if you imagine a balloon, you have a full balloon, you squeeze the balloon, the air doesn't leave the balloon, it just moves. It just travels to the other side. And what Tesler's law says is that complexity doesn't leave if you move it from one place to another. So his takeaway as he managed teams of engineers was, you should spend a few more weeks, a few more months refining the user experience and putting the complexity in the back in code, so that the users have an easier experience and they're not dealing with the complexity. You want to displace that complexity. You want to hide it from them. But the complexity doesn't actually leave. And other people said, working around him, on the Apple team, eventually created a corollary to that, which is that as users experience, I'm going to flip back to that amazing transition, you guys. As people experience the change from something complex to something simpler, our brains are actually seeking the complexity that was there before. So even as you make it better, we're still looking for the complexity, and we are looking for more jobs to do. So if you're familiar with jobs to be done, we go to Google for one thing, it looks like this. Then Google says, no, this is the job we really want you to do. And we're still looking for those other buttons, even though we might never click them. So the law of complexity gets confounded because what Tesla meant when he wrote it was, do all the work up front so that you don't have to be continuously refining it. But what do we all talk about all the time? Continual optimization. His vision was you have it so thought out that it'll work. He didn't say don't optimize once it's released, but you get my point. So he was trying to reduce friction. Everybody's familiar with this word friction. This is not a new term. I didn't invent it. I'm not a genius. The seamless, frictionless experience is optimized to prevent exits from all transactional flows. As I talked about, removing unnecessary pieces of landing pages. I'm trying to get rid of friction. I don't want you to all of a sudden have a click out to another article that might get you to change your mind, or I don't want to add resources, or I don't want to add new things that are distracting you from that buy now button, the book now button, the form, whatever it is. As we get rid of friction, we move faster. We move seamlessly. It's up there in big bold type with beautiful serifs on it. We did some research a couple years ago. This is pre-pandemic, and we did research into customer experience across types, not all digital experiences, but any type of engagement you could do that would be counted by the person involved on the consumption end as an experience. It was all combined into one. And what they complained about, yes, I love frictionless, seamless experiences. They all told us, get me to the thing I want faster. I love it. But then what they complained about was recall. Post-frictionless experience, their appreciation of the thing was almost always lower. They couldn't remember anything about it. How many of you have already clicked this button since you got here today somewhere? Forgot password. I click it 60 times a day, and I have a funny thing. Because everything is frictionless, because everything is seamless, because it's so easy for me, I can sign up one click and I do it on my phone, but then I want to log into my laptop. It's all disconnected, right? So I signed up for LastPass. We actually get it for free as part of ASU, as part of the enterprise. But guess what? I can't remember that password. So I keep ending up having this experience with that brand. The promise they make is one password, you can get into anything you want. Amazing. It's amazing when it works. I click it on my phone, and I don't remember the password, so that's not a great experience. They've broken their promise. I hate that brand. Anybody use Spotify? Does anybody use Discover Weekly? Yes. It is absolutely amazing. 3 out of 4 weeks, Discover Weekly creates a playlist for you that is custom based on the music you like. You don't have to put in any things that say, I like this or that. It follows what you listen to, creates a playlist of stuff, some that you like, some that you've never heard before, and 3 out of 4 times, like I said, it's amazing for me. That's my experience with it. If I don't listen to Discover Weekly, and I want to hear those songs, I have no awareness of who the artist is, what the name of the song is, how to get back to it. Discover Weekly fades on Friday, and it's gone when the next one comes. So it's introducing me to this seamless, frictionless exploration. What a beautiful brand promise. Spotify's brand promise, if I have to guess, I don't work there, is helping you discover all the music in the world. Access and discovery. Except, unless I'm taking notes or bookmarking or adding to my own playlist that I keep, I can't get back to it. And I find myself humming songs to people because I'm like, what's the song that goes like this? And I think it's by these people that are from this country, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't listen to stuff that's that weird, I don't think. That's a weird element of frictionless and seamless marketing. What a gift for an artist that maybe is underserved, under-listened to get presented to me and the people in the room who raise their hand to be presented as a new artist. What an amazing opportunity for distribution that they would never otherwise have. But I can't go back and listen to them again. I can't go to their concert. I can't buy their merch. It's on me as a user to figure that part out. Did I mention that brands are like relationships? I'm not sure. Remind me. Did I do that? Yeah, I did. Okay. So when we're trying to create that relationship, it's about a certain level of intimacy. It's about a certain level of trust. I trust Spotify to every Monday morning I give it a whirl. I'll listen to Discover Weekly. It's not great every time, but it's great most of the time. And they're going to make that promise to me, and I lean in, and I'm amazed most of the time. And then on Thursday, when I go back to try to find those artists, they're gone. I can't find them. But this idea of earning my trust is why it's so important that we build friction back in. We're selective of putting in pauses. We're selective of adding seams, which sounds totally counterintuitive to what Steve Krug told us, because we need bumps so that people can have pauses where they stop and listen, where people can actually respond back to us. where people can engage in something that's like a conversation. I don't think that people really care about brands. I'm never thinking about a brand. I used to ask this question about, I used to ask everybody in the room, what have you been thinking about before you sat down? And I stopped doing it because the answers are always the same. People are thinking about getting a coffee. People are thinking about their mortgage. People are thinking about the meeting they're missing because they're at this conference. Nobody ever says like, oh, I'm thinking about the brand pillars of Starbucks. Like, we don't care. We don't care about that. Our lives are packed. Our brains are packed. We don't have time for any new memory structures. It's all being programmed around us and we're sort of subject to it. So we have to find ways to add seams and add bumps and add inputs that people can make that connection. So Spotify has an amazing one. It'd be good if they leverage that a little bit more. Does anybody like Costco? I like Costco. Costco is a warehouse. Just close your eyes. Imagine a warehouse. Now imagine 80% things that you don't need or want, and you're like, I'm going to go buy that. Costco's big thing that I love about it is sampling. I love the idea that I'm going to go to this warehouse and I'm going to buy a 20-pound thing of Twizzlers, and I'm going to buy, I don't know, dumbbells that you fill with water or some silly thing. All stuff that I regret as soon as I get into the car. And toilet paper. And then I'm also going to have this experience with them, this hook that is sampling this new product that I've never tried, and probably more than one. That's a very intelligent piece of friction that they inserted in there. And they actually sell for that privilege if you don't know. If you want to sample there, you have to pay. They added that to build the experience, because otherwise, if I'm being reductionist like I just was, it really is just a warehouse full of stuff stacked to the ceiling. And maybe that's enough. But it's not enough for you to remember the next time, to feel good about it, to go back. Or, God forbid, I think they love me because I go once a year, but I want to renew that membership. They need me to do that. Most of their profits come from the memberships alone. When Instacart came out, or not when Instacart came out, but during the pandemic, when Instacart was widely adopted, we adopted it. I'm sure many people in here did too. That entire idea of sampling, or anything that could be a grocery store experience, disappeared, went away. And it started to become really clear to me that I am from here. I'm from Scottsdale. There's 2 Safeways within a half mile of me. It's obscene. The idea of being able to pick up my produce and inspect it, to look at the bananas to see that they're just the right shade of green, turning yellow, but not too yellow yet, no stain, no brown on them yet, get them exactly perfect. Instacart took that away from me. And it took away the brand promise for Safeway. It obscured it, or Bash's, or whatever supermarket you go to, any Kroger. What Instacart offered me was frictionless, seamless, flawless, fast. And it is. Second time you use it. First time you use it, it's a nightmare. The second time you use it, when you figure it out, it is seamless, it's fast. You can reorder those things. Did anybody else have that same experience with Instacart where you got the groceries and you realize like, oh yeah, this isn't at all. This is the right things, but these are not the things that I would have bought in this list of categories. Like, who did this? Who's the monster that put these bananas in my bag? This is terrible. Daniel Kahneman is most famous for, or is the most famous proponent of this thing called the peak end theory. Anybody familiar with this? Amazing, you're gonna love it. Good, I see some people. For those people who are not familiar, you're gonna like this. The idea is this: we really only remember 2 things about any experience. And he explored this for like physical experiences. Roller coasters are a big example. But it translates really well to digital experiences as well. We remember 2 parts: the end, how it wraps up, how it concludes. Did we get what we want? Did we get what we were promised? There's that word promise again. And the peak, the high point. What was the biggest thrill or disappointment or whatever emotion? Those are the 2 takeaways we're going to have 6 minutes after we walk out of it. So roller coasters are a great example because they always start with that big uphill climb, and then you pause, peak, that big drop. And then if you think of pretty much any roller coaster you've ever been on, the way it ends, you it usually comes up with some fast whip around towards the end. So you get some last thrill that feels mostly safe. You don't feel dangerous, but it feels like you're moving quickly, and that's a adrenaline rush. So you get off the thing laughing, and the people getting on see you laughing, and that's amazing for everybody, especially Walt Disney Company. It also is true for horror movies. For horror movies, there's only really two parts. There's a series of terrible things that happen. If you saw Barbarian, there's a big surprise in the middle of that movie. That is the peak. And then that's what people tell each other about. And then they go, and then it's a satisfying ending. They catch the bad guy at the end. Or maybe they do. I'm not spoiling that one for you. So going back to this idea of how Google simplified things and the peak end theory, they didn't totally walk away from brand. Google is one of the strongest brands in the world. Google finds ways to inject friction and create the memories that they want people to have. Otherwise, it would just be a white box that's a text input. It's a disaster. It's totally generic at that point. Even the font they picked. They have their Google Doodles, which has been going on since very early in the company. They change them up locally. They change them up regionally. They change them up based on holidays. On the top left, you can see Halloween 2022. This is brand building. This is a little bit of friction. If it's animated, you watch it, you like it, people share them, people talk about them. And otherwise, Google's pretty boring. Google is how I find content marketing by accident. Like, I don't even want it. Just give me the answer. No, Google says, here's an interruption for you that you will find pleasant. That will be a nice, bright part of your day. It'll be a peak in this experience. And then at the end, we're confident that we're going to deliver the search result that you're seeking. In typical brand marketing, this is how brands connect with customers. It's the brands on one side, their very best customers. I've already talked about the promise that they're making, but those promises are aligned on goals. So the strongest brands like Google deliver and align their goals based on what their best customers want. And as they go into new verticals, they create new goals and they create new promises for those customers. And if you're not delivering on that, that's when people bail. How many iOS users and how many people use some other system, Android or other? iOS? Hands? Yeah. Okay. How delighted were you when you typed Happy New Year for the first time and you got fireworks, or Happy Birthday and you got those balloons, or congratulations and you got confetti? I was jumping up and down like a child. It's ridiculous. It is not reasonable that I was so excited about it, but I was. Part of the thing, Apple's promise, is about it just works, and it's about simple delight of use of this technology that makes you feel like you did something amazing. And just by typing Happy Birthday, but with an exclamation point, if you leave off the exclamation point, it doesn't work. You get this feature, and all of a sudden you feel like you did something amazing. You didn't do shit. You typed something. It's not so amazing. Part of the thrill of that is that it's the same thing as the green bubbles versus blue bubbles. For iOS people, don't tell the non-iOS people about the blue bubbles. It's a secret. But it's the same thing where I said brands exist here between the relationship between the business and the best customers. But brands exist because not just that I believe that Apple is an enjoyable brand to use, but that I believe that the other people in the room also think it's cool. If I didn't think that there was some sort of cultural impact of it, that there was some visibility of it, I wouldn't think it was as cool. It's the same reason why Nike's a great brand. It's not just because they do cool ads and they have cool products, but it's because my assumption that you also think it's cool. And if you told me, if we went to a party and 10 people said, oh, I don't Nike socks, I like this other brand. Believe it or not, I would leave there thinking like, I don't know, maybe these shoes, maybe they're not as cool as I thought they were. Maybe this brand isn't what I thought it was. Or if you read a negative news story, you start to think that same thing. Part of what Apple's doing here, this kind of friction that they've put in, is this shared excitement among multiple people that the brand is doing this. Here's an expression of the brand. Here's a bit of friction that we can enjoy together and have a memory about. It's a peak and an end, I guess. Canva, brand promise. Anybody can be a designer. Anybody can create. What an amazing experience. I signed up for it just for this presentation to see what the experience was like. You click something very simple. It starts asking you, what kind of things would you like to design? And as you go through a very simple sign-up process that is educating me on the simplicity of Canva, they add friction to it, where they ask for one more step, one more detail, but it's not 70 steps. It's 2 steps. And at the conclusion, there's more confetti, which is kind of funny. I don't know why confetti is the go-to, but the celebration was enjoyable and made me feel like I had achieved something. And all I did was tell them I want to design slides. But it made me feel encouraged. It made me feel that things are possible. It made me believe that Canva is a supporter of mine and has my back. That's a huge brand building statement for something that might only exist as 2D pixels stacked on my phone that needs me to come back to it and use it and be excited about it, because there's a lot of other products that do what they do. But it is not all confetti. There's some other ways you could do this as well. Chewy gets the idea of more people understanding the brand than just the user themselves, just the person on the app, just the person ordering. They do this very simple thing. You order something, you add, in this case, my dog Daisy loves Nutro. She's the best dog in the world, so I'm sure it's the best food. When you click on that, it says, would you like to buy something else? But it doesn't just say that. It says, pet lovers also bought. What a dumb, nice little touch that tells me, oh, I'm in the company of other pet lovers. You just heard how I fawned over my dog. It's even worse in real life. And what a nice little brand touch. What a nice bit of friction. Anybody learning a language here? When someone asked, how are you most easily misunderstood? The answer for me is Mandarin. Duolingo does an amazing thing where they're trying to get you to sign up for notifications, which I don't know about you. I turn off every notification, even the ringer. Like my phone, when it rings, does not light up, doesn't do anything. The only thing that's on right now is the timer that's telling me I'm almost out of time. And they do this smart thing where they build in friction there, and they're actually telling you, we are going to add friction to your life beyond the use of this app. And we are going to keep interrupting you to get you to play this game, to learn this language, to achieve your goal, and keep the promise that we made to you when you downloaded it. And you do it because they do it in such a charming way. They reframe it all around goals. They obscure the reference to interruption, and they reframe how we think about notifications. Another flashing light, another dinging bell. No, this is going to be your chance to learn that language. This is going to be your chance to keep your education moving. This is going to be your chance to advance in the way that you wanted to advance when you clicked this button, but you forgot 10 minutes later because you also downloaded 7 other apps and Twitter told you something funny was happening with Elon Musk. But notifications are also a dangerous space, going back to Uber. This is about 3 weeks ago. They sold their notifications for ads. They started posting ads in their notifications that are very trusted. So if you are an Uber user, you have to have your notifications on, because when you order a ride, you need to know that the driver is coming, or the driver's been delayed, or inexplicably, the goddamn driver has canceled the ride. They're selling an ad there. This is negative friction. This is the kind of friction Krug was talking about. Get rid of this. And then Monzo added this idea. Monzo is a bank that is the unbank. It's in the UK and around the world, not in the US. And to be the unbanked, to appeal to young people, to appeal to the traditionally unbanked, they added this element into their app: review late night spending. And you can turn it on or off, so that if you've ever maybe been overserved and come home and hit Amazon and ordered 50 things that you certainly didn't need that you're surprised about 2 weeks later, Monzo gives you a notification ahead of time so you can cancel those things in advance, or at least pre-regret them, I guess. And so I was hoping to have some time for questions. I will hang out after, but that's all the time I have. Thank you. If you do have questions, you can email me there, you can tweet me, and I will get back to you. Thanks, everybody.